Hello, everyone. On today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about superfoods. Um, what I've noticed, in my during my life is that science is very tricky. There are real scientists that use science. They study science and do research in order to help others. And then there's the group of scientists that do research in order to manipulate people. They're not doing it to help others. They're doing it for, they already have an ulterior motive hidden, behind the scenes. That's the only way, they're doing it to make money, or they're doing it to, to drive a cause or do this or do that. They're never in it for science in and of itself. There's always a hidden agenda behind their researches, their research. And one of the things I've noticed is that, the trend of foods, you have to be careful, you know, you have to be very careful with all these health trends and food trends and all that. I've done the ketogenic diet. I've done the caveman diet. I've done intermittent fasting. I've done all these fads in the past. And what I realize is in the end, if you really want to change your life, if you really want to change your life, you want to lose weight, do not think of it as a diet. You have to make it a lifestyle, a lifestyle choice. It's not something you just do and then give up. You just do to lose weight. You do it because this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. If it's not what you want to do for the rest of your life, after you lose weight, guess what? You're gonna go back to exactly what you were doing before, and you start gaining weight again. You go back to being the fat person you used to be, or the chubby person you used to be. So if you really want to lose weight, you have to have the mindset that this is something you'll do for the rest of your life, not just the mindset of, hey, I'm only going to do this until I lose weight. I'm only going to do this until the party, until spring break, where I have to show off my abs, my six pack abs. You know, I got to show off my six pack abs. So if that's you, just know that it's not gonna work out for you. You'll be too stressed. You try to force yourself to do something too quickly, and it might hurt you. So what I'm going to talk about in this podcast is actually something more than that. I was just using that as I was just giving that as a word of caution. What I've noticed, my entire life, is that you have to be careful with food. What many people don't tell you about food is that the people who sell you something, right? They sell you this drug. If you ever notice, most people who sell you, things like superfoods or microgreens or this or that, if someone is giving you like a new um, food or new vegetable you've never heard before, and that person only mentions the benefits of it, be very careful. Why? Because some of these food that they some of these greens, some of these vegetables are actually very, very toxic. Some of these vegetables are actually very, very poisonous, like honey and all these other, some of these things like people only mention. If you ever notice, when it comes to foods, people only mention the benefits of it. They never mention the downsides. But when it comes to drugs, they always, I guess that's why the whole drug company is wiser. Back in the days, the drug companies only mentioned the benefits until people realize they're just scamming them. It's a scam. What's the point of all the benefits if the downsides are worse than the benefits? You think about it. What's the point of having a benefit if the downsides are worse than the benefit itself? Like for example, like a few years ago, um, I was watching. I was scrolling through, I think, YouTube, and then someone recommended taro, or tarot. I forgot the name. I think it's taro, Taro, taro leaves. You know, for as they recommended it as a very healthy greens. Very healthy vegetable to eat. They told, and then when I started doing research, all the people that was telling me to eat taro, leaves, taro as a vegetable, always only mention how great that vegetable is. It's a superfood. It is this. It is that. It is this. It is that. You need this on your diet. You need this in your diet. You need this in your diet. And guess what? Do you know how dangerous that plant is? That plant. Let me do a quick Google search. Let me to make sure I'm spelling it properly. I mean I'm pronouncing it properly. Yep, it is taro. Taro. Not tarot. Tarot. Taro. This plant that the taro plant is so toxic that it actually has like actually has like tiny little spikes or tiny little tiny little sharp needles within it. And if you eat that plant raw, it'll kill you. It can kill you. That is how toxic that plant is. Yet, if you look online, if you search it online, many people will only tell you the benefits of that plant. And they'll try to tell you to have it as your as tell you it's a dietary requirement, is this, is that, without ever telling you the downsides of it. That very plant itself is very, very toxic, and is capable of killing you if you eat it raw. So when I did my research, I ended up finding out it was toxic. But so I was a bit more cautious. So I grew the taro, plant, and then I cooked it multiple times, right? Just like I watched a video that showed me, you need to cook it multiple times. I cooked it multiple times. I took the green leaves. I didn't touch the roots. I touched the green leaves and cooked it multiple times. And guess what? It was still toxic. That is how dangerous that plant is. That even after being cooked, that thing could still kill you. And yet, this is the food that people keep mentioning on a daily basis. This is a health drug. This is the new. This is better than broccoli. This is better than carrots. This is better than tomatoes. This is better than green leaf. The other green vegetables. They never even bother telling you that this thing could kill you. So you have to be very careful in the future. If if you're someone who likes to try new things, that many people who come to your doorstep telling you, try microgreens, try this, try that, they never tell you that it doesn't cross their minds that the food they're eating is toxic. There's so many people dying of food poisoning on a daily basis. There's so many people who die, who never make to the age of 40 because the food they eat on a daily basis is toxic, and they themselves never know. It boggles my mind how many people eat toxic foods on a daily basis without the slightest care in the world that the food they're eating is the cause of their illnesses. The food they're eating is the cause of their illnesses. There's a food that I used to love eating pizzas, right? I used to order, my parents used to, while growing up, my parents used to order, Domino's, they order, Little Caesars, they order from, there's so many different stores that they order from. I didn't used to like Domino's because, out of all the stores that they ordered, I didn't like Domino's that much out of all of them. And then the next was Little Caesars. Little Caesars wasn't that great. I always felt my stomach pains after eating Little Caesars. So I obviously, it wasn't the freshest, I already knew if I keep eating Little Caesars, that thing could kill me. So I gave up on Little Caesars. But recently there was I won't name the name because, it's not my place to mock them. But there's a franchise that's local, the franchise, we can probably find it just from this description. It's a pizza franchise that's just based around Michigan. It's just it's a local Michigan only. It may expand in the future to other other states, but it's mainly in Michigan. And it prides itself on being gourmet, the best of the best. And I have to tell you, man, that company made me hate eating pizza. They tell you all the benefits, how great pizza is, how this and that, and how, it's gourmet, it's better for you, and it costs more than, some other pizza stores like, Little Caesars. So you think with all this marketing, all this, all those buzzwords that keep saying how great they are, how perfect they are. And yet every time I ate the pizza, my stomach always hurt. That's what you have to be careful of. They almost made me hate eating pizza because how come every time I eat pizza, it always hurts my stomach? I fell for the scam. I fell for the marketing scam. It's a marketing scam when, you tell people how great your pizza is. You know, your pizza is the best of the best. Yet it's even worse than Little Caesars. There's got to be something wrong when you're promising us all these things, yet you're incapable of, delivering on your promises. So it was only recently that I went back to Domino's and I ate their pizza, and I realized that, wow, my stomach doesn't hurt eating this pizza. It's been so long. I don't eat pizza that much. That's why, every time I eat pizza once in a while, I end up buying from that store because, it's gourmet, it's the best. Everyone's got to eat the best. So I fell for the scam, ended up buying the worst pizza around. And always, every time, taking a bite was, it was a life and death, crisis. I bought this pizza. Should I eat it? Well, it kind of tastes good, but if I throw all this pizza away, doesn't that mean I just wasted all my money? Is it, doesn't that mean I just wasted all my money? Especially when I don't eat pizza that much. I don't eat pizza that much. I just assume that maybe this is just how all pizzas are these days. They all suck. But it changed when I actually ate Domino's. That's when I realized that I may have been wrong. I should have tried something else. It's been years since I've been eating from that store. On and off. I only once every few months, but it's been years since I'd rather cook my own meals. I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm someone who'd rather just cook their own meals than eat outside. I just prefer it's just been something I've always done, from very young. I'm someone just preparing my own meals. I hate eating from I hate eating out because you never know what you get when you eat out. So that just brought me to all the things that I've heard throughout my life, from intermittent fasting to the caveman diet. The caveman diet, you have to be careful. If you never heard about the caveman diet before, do not worry about the caveman diet. Leave the caveman diet alone. It has nothing to do with you. The caveman diet is useless. Do you know why? If cavemen were so great, how come they died before 30 years old? If the caveman diet was so great, how come most cavemen died from diseases, illnesses brought from the food they ate? So you have to be careful, If cavemen were that great, if they were that smart, that intelligent, and the diet they ate was that meticulously calculated. They knew exactly what they wanted, and they knew, it would be the most nutritious meal ever. If they were that smart, why did they die? Why did most of them die before the age of 30? So you have that question alone should make you think. Is the caveman diet something, I should be doing in the modern age? With so many facts that prove that, eating raw meat, is very, very harmful for you. Eating raw foods are very, very harmful for you. Is it time for me to be, to be living like a caveman? Does it benefit me to behave and live like a caveman? Does that sound like a good idea to you? So this is one of those things you have to be careful of. If you listen, to a person who loves the caveman diet, they will only tell you all the benefits of it. If you listen to a spokesperson, they will only tell you all the benefits of a product. They will never mention the downsides, and that's how life works. If someone's trying to market something to you, they will never even closely, remotely go near the downsides unless they have to. And that's how drugs companies are. That's why they always have to speak the downsides of their drugs very fast and at the end of the commercial, because they don't want you paying attention to the downsides. They only want you to pay attention to the upsides of of the drug. You know, so you always have to be very careful with these diets. If someone just gives you, tell or recommends a new diet and start telling you all the benefits of it, you have to remember this person is lying to you. He's hiding all the downsides of it. The fact that he's hiding all the downsides of it shows you that this person just wants you to, he just wants you to follow along with what he's doing. He doesn't really care about. He doesn't really care about he doesn't care about your health at all. Is he doing it? You got to do it too. If he dies from it, you got to die from it too. That's the mindset of some friends. If I'm doing it and I got to die from it, you have to die from it too. That's the mindset of some bad friends. If they cared about your health, they'll mention the benefits and the downsides. The fact that they only mention the benefits just shows you that these people really, either they have, ill intentions or they don't really know what they're doing. If they don't really know what they're doing, you should be following someone that doesn't know what he's doing. Because someone who knows what he's doing will, after researching the upsides, right, of a product, before recommending it to a friend or family member, they'll also research the downside. Just hoping that it doesn't hurt their friends or family members. In order to make sure it doesn't hurt someone, someone they know or themselves, they'll research both the upsides and the downsides of a product. And there's so many products in this world, like goji berries and this and that. They'll tell you so many names. There's an endless product in the whole health industry. There's endless product. There are endless products out there, from goji berries to spirulina, to moringa. There's so many different health products, and I've seen them all. Someone would recommend, whey proteins and all this, and all these spokespeople do is tell you only the upsides. Then they will never even closely remotely go near the downsides of it, and that's what you have to be careful of. Some plants have extreme downsides, like death, as in if you just take it for like 1 week, you will immediately die. These plants are right there. For example, the one I just mentioned, taro. That plant could kill you right away. If you eat that plant raw, if you're a child or someone who already has bad health, and you eat that plant raw, you will die immediately. It's like someone telling you all the benefits of chocolate and telling you to give it to your dog, or tell you to give it to your child, without ever mentioning that, hey, if you give chocolate to a dog, it'll kill that dog. If you give chocolate to a child, that small little baby, it can still kill that little baby. These people never mention the downsides of these things. They only mention the upsides. So you really have to be careful in life. There's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many people in this world who rarely ever pay attention to the downsides of the things that, they recommend to others. There's always downsides to almost everything in life has upsides and downsides. If you drink too much water, you can die from drinking too much water. If you drink too much sugar, you can die from eating. If you eat too much sugar, you can die from eating too much sugar. So you always have to make sure, when you give someone, if you want to recommend a product to someone, you should probably do the research of the downsides of the product, of eating the product. Whether it's just carrots. You know how many people die of carrots every year? You know why? Because some of these places that sell, that produce carrots, the conditions in some of these places are so bad that the carrots have, extremely detrimental bacteria is growing on them. Some of these carrots are so infected, you eat them. If you eat them raw, you'll die immediately. That's why that's why there's always carrot recalls every year. Almost every year, there's a carrot recall. There's a fruit recall, because there's all the conditions of the places that sell these, items, man. You can, it's so bad that, you can end up getting killed just eating an apple. You can just end up getting killed just, taking a bite out of a carrot, So you really have to be careful in life. Do not listen to anyone who only mentions the upsides of a product or of a fruit. Every fruit has a downside. Every vegetable has a downside. Some people are extremely allergic to certain things. And some people, some people's body are already very sensitive. Some people, especially sick people, if you're healthy, that's one of the things you have to be careful of too. Is that healthy people can eat certain toxic food, right, all year long, and they barely suffer that much consequence from it. Maybe they just get a stomach ache, just like me. Like me eating the pizza that I was talking about. All I get is a stomach ache. As long as I rest for a week, I'll go back to normal. But some people who are already sick, if they eat these foods that already that makes them sicker, they could just die right there. So you have to be careful recommending foods to people, because some people are very sick, and all it takes is just one badly recommended food, that you mention only the upsides of, without even thinking about that a fruit actually has a downside. Some fruits are very toxic. Some things like honeys are very toxic. Even chocolate is toxic. So if you only mention the upsides and you give a very sick person one of these toxic foods and they end up dying, just know it's your fault. You have to think, because you can't say you didn't know, but you can't say you really didn't know. Because he trusted you, man. He thought you did the research. That sick person thought you did the research yourself, and there wasn't any downside. He thought you didn't mention the downside because they didn't exist. He didn't think that you didn't go. You didn't even think about the downsides. It didn't even cross your mind that eating an apple has downsides. It didn't even cross your mind that eating a vegetable has downsides. So something like taro. You didn't cross your mind that taro is poisonous. It doesn't even cross your mind at all that some of these fruits that we eat are poisonous. So you just told your friend, hey, your sick friend, hey, or a random stranger, hey, this food is good for you, man. It has vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin D's, has a lot of electrolytes, is revitalizing, rejuvenated, and it's packed with a lot of vitamins and minerals, and it's very good for you. It has all essential, it has a lot of essential oils within it as well, like omega-3 fatty acids and all this. It has so much inside of it, man. This thing is the best. If you don't eat this, you know, how you gonna get all these essential vitamins and minerals? How you gonna get all these fatty acids into your diet? Just this small food is enough for you to get all your dietary requirements for the day. Just that this plant is enough for you to get all your dietary requirements for the day. Why are you not eating this plant? It doesn't make sense. Eat this plant right now. If you're that person that's telling your friend, eat this poisonous plant right now because it contains all the vitamins and minerals that you need for the day. It has all the essential vitamins and minerals, you know, and it is filled with electrolytes, It's filled with electrolytes, to help you age less. It's very rejuvenating, and exfoliating. This is one of the best. It's a superfood, This plant is a superfood. If one of those people who told your sick friend this is a superfood and they'll accidentally end up dying a few days later, it's your fault. You may not think it's your fault, but it's your fault. And the worst part is you may never know that, the food you gave them was the reason they died. Because you'd be eating this food. All you got was a stomach ache, That's all you got. You think because you got a stomach ache, it means the food is healthy. That's some people's mindset. You have to be careful. Some people have the mindset that if it's hurt my stomach, it's healthy. So you have to be careful. So some people eat poison on a daily basis thinking if it hurts my stomach, it means it's healthy for me. So if someone who thinks if it hurts my stomach, it means it's healthy for me. If that person recommends, any food for you, run. It's probably eating poisonous food on a daily basis. This person may not even live to the age of 40. His organs may be failing, as we speak, and you may not even know it. So you have to really be careful of these health products, They will trick you it's so easy to trick people by only mentioning the upsides, You think because something has all these essential vitamins and minerals, you think it automatically means it's healthy. You don't know that along with these essential vitamins and minerals, there's a lot of tiny, tiny little poisonous substances inside that could kill you immediately. So yes, you get all the essential vitamins and minerals, that you need for the day, but you're dead. So was it really worth it? Was all these essential vitamins and minerals really worth it when the product is gonna kill you anyways? So that's what you have to think about. Is this food poisonous, or if it is this food so poisonous that I'll die immediately? Is this thing worth the risk? What are the downsides of these foods that have all these essential vitamins and minerals? Do these things have extremely poisonous substances hidden within them that we need to be careful of? This is what you really have to be careful of, because the whole health industry is filled with these, you know, healthy products, healthy foods, healthy plants that, they keep recommending all these healthy plants for you that you never heard of before. And they tell you all the benefits of them. And then without ever mentioning the downside. And then you go and try them out. And then, you have to be surprised how many people die every year just from that alone. All these health products, all these people constantly mentioning. And especially, most of the time, it's usually the spokespeople, the people who own these companies. They rarely ever eat the fruit. So even if they get a stomach pain once in a while, they tell you, it's fine. The stomach pain will go away. You know, start in small doses. That's what they tell you. If they want to sell the product very well, they tell you start in small doses. Your body will get used to it. Yes, it hurts your stomach. Yeah, it hurts your stomach because it's poisonous, but they won't tell you that. So yes, it hurts your stomach because it's filled with so many vitamins and minerals. That's why it hurts your stomach. It's not. It doesn't hurt your stomach because it's filled with tiny, tiny little spikes, tiny little crystals, sharp crystals that will rip your intestines open. Nah, that's not the reason why it hurts your stomach. Like taro, that's not the reason why it hurts your stomach. It hurts your stomach because there's a lot of essential vitamins and minerals. It's so power packed with essential vitamins and minerals that your stomach hurts. Your stomach is incapable of digesting such a rich and concentrated dose of essential vitamins and minerals. That's the reason why your stomach hurts. Your stomach doesn't hurt you when you eat this product because it's poisonous. It's filled with bacteria that can kill you, or it's filled with chemicals, toxic chemicals. They're chemicals that are naturally toxic. In this world, there are chemicals in this world that are just natural toxic and for the human body to ingest. There's very extremely toxic chemicals, and some plants produce these chemicals on a daily basis. Some plants, the entire plant is covered in these chemicals, and then there's some plants that have, their own protective measures. They create, little ways like taro. They have like tiny little spikes just to prevent you from eating it. Anyone that eats these products will die automatically. You know, so there's so many different ways that plants protect themselves from danger. Plants protect themselves from being eaten by animals. So you have to be careful. Some plants, although they have essential vitamins and minerals, it's not for you to eat. It's for them. These essential vitamins and minerals are for them, not for you. So if you eat these plants, guess what? They also have something else for you. They're like snakes. They have something else for you as well. If you think that there's essential vitamins and minerals in these plants are for you to eat, guess what? You'll be poisoned to death by them. So you have to be careful. Not all these plants are there for you to eat. Just because, it can be considered a superfood does not mean it doesn't have a major drawback in it, behind the scenes that could kill you instantly. So you have to be careful of all these diets that tell you to, eat like a caveman, eat like a, X or Y, do some intermittent fasting, do this, do that, follow this health trend. You know, this is so good for you. There's no way there's no reason why you shouldn't try this. It's filled with all these essential vitamins and minerals. That's the biggest gimmick around. It's exfoliating. It's rejuvenating. They love using these buzzwords like rejuvenating, exfoliating, you know, healthy, you know, but they never mention the downsides. So if you're someone who cares about their health, you have to avoid anything that tells you only about the upsides. Any product that only gives you the upsides without mentioning the downsides of it does not have your best interest at heart. If they only mention the upsides of a plant without telling you that the plant is poisonous, you know, it's on you to find out. If they don't have it there, just do your own research. Find out the downsides just a simple 2 second Google search. You named put the product in there and say what are the downsides of this, of eating this, what are the downsides of consuming this, and Google will show you a bunch of people who've consumed this before or who've died from this before, you know. So it's that easy to protect yourself from danger. So if you're someone who truly wants to who cares about their health, do not listen to these people these spokesperson or these, advertisers, tell you how great the product is without telling you the downsides of it. Most, the good ones will tell you the downsides of it. The bad ones will definitely lie to you. They want you to try the product so badly, they don't care. They don't want you to know the downsides. If you know the downsides, you won't try it. So why should they mention the downside? Think about it. If you know the downsides, why would you try the product? If you know the downside will kill you, why would you try the product? It doesn't make any logical sense, right? Why should they tell you the downsides? It'll make you, you become desensitized. You become disinterested, to the whole, to the marketing campaign. So why should they mention the downsides to you? Doesn't make any logical sense. Think things through. Why would someone telling you something ever mention the downsides of it? It makes no logical sense. They won't make any money from it in any way, shape, or form. So there's it's a conflict of interest problem. There's a conflict of interest. All these people who tell you to join this diet, they'll never mention the downside of the diet, right? Because it's a conflict of interest. They're selling you a service. As long as you follow their guide, you follow their guide, you thank them for it and blah, blah, blah. You may even buy their books. You may even give them some donation money. They may ask you for donation. They may ask you for this. They may ask you for that. But, so they'll never want to mention the downside because there's no benefit for them. If they gain no benefit from mentioning the downside, why should they mention the downside if they gain no benefit from it? So that's what you have to be careful of. Why should they mention the downside of a poisonous product if they gain no benefit from it? So that's what I've realized, in the whole health industry thing, is that you have to be very careful. Some of these products will kill you outright. And it's on you to realize that these things are not healthy. Some of these foods, some of these, stores do not sell healthy products whatsoever. But they tell you it's healthy because they only mention the upsides of it. And they ignore the downsides. And they don't want you to search. They don't even want you to search for the downsides, right? Because why should they even hint at telling you to search for the downside when it'll make you disinterested in their product? They won't make any money if you know that this food has downsides. They will not make any money if you don't buy the food because it has downsides. So they got to make money, right? Everyone's got to make money, right? So be careful. And that's it for this podcast episode. I'll talk to you guys later.